So I'm putting together how the emblem on the front will look. I had a few designs, and though they're all very nice, you have to think about practicality and what you are physically capable of doing. Although something like this is very beautiful in its own way, it's very intricate. And something like that, having to cut out those pieces, it just seems like it would be something better done with thread. Which unfortunately isn't the look of my book. My book is very clean lined. So something like that with threading and cord, even though it would look really great on another book, it just won't really fit the design that I already have planned out. So I will not be using that one. This one would have been great as a vinyl sticker. That's something you can always go online and order those done. Usually if you Google signs or sign making or custom sign and decals, that's a part of it for, like if you were to get your business phone number as lettering for your car, for example, that's the kind of place you would go, and they would have this for you, and then you'd have this nice and easy vinyl sticker. But again, being the kind of book that it is, I'm doing my very best to stay away from that sort of thing. So I'm going to end up going with this design, which is actually a pendant that I have. I took a picture of it with my phone, emailed it to myself at work, and then I printed it out. However, it's easier for you if you have a copier. That's probably easier than do that. I did a couple different sizes in Photoshop just to figure out which size is best, and I have it narrowed down to these two. I think I'm going to go with the bigger one. It seems like this fits the space a little bit better and makes a nice presence, maybe a hair bigger. I might try the big one, even though at first I thought it was just far too big. It's hard to tell with all the paper around it. I really have to cut it out and place it and see how it looks. But this is really it. It's all this planning that you spend, This is where this section will be with the stitching along the edge here. So this is the space I have to work with. So now is the time to figure out how it's going to look. If you're going to have any lettering here, how you plan on doing that. The vinyl sticker thing, if that's what you wanted to do, then you could submit your whole design, this tree with the text below it. Maybe it's a quote or something, or just 3 words to describe it, or you could really do something really meaningful and cool like that, and then you would get the clear vellum, put it down and peel it off, and your sticker's there and done on your book. So for those of you that that's the way you want to go, that's the easiest. But for me, I'm kind of choosing something harder. I do want to sew it into place, so I'm choosing a design like this that's a little more solid, has an outer ring that I could stitch around to fasten it, versus something that is that's open edge like this, which means I would have to stitch all of these edges to make sure that they stay. And it's just a much simpler design to cut out. So I'm just going to figure out the size that I want here, and then I will show you how I plan on cutting this out. So I've chosen my decal, and of course it ended up being the biggest one, the one that when I first made the design thought it was far too big and that I had to make all these little ones. So what a difference it makes to actually cut it out and physically put it on top of the cover and look at it. And now that it's in place, it's the one to go with. It really is. So again, it's just funny how things like that work out, especially in the print industry. You will find that once you print it out, it looks completely different, far from what it did on your screen. You'd think to yourself, looking at your screen, oh, this is perfect, it's beautiful, and you print it out and you look at it and you go, it's kind of funny the way those edges are. I don't know if I like the length of this or the way that it's sitting in that spot. So this is a perfect example of how when it was printed on the page, I thought, oh, it's far too big. And then the moment I put it on there, it's perfect. So as luck would have it, I also just so happens that when I cut this out to length, my scrap can be used. So I'm very excited. This never happens to me. It seems like I'm always just short on everything. So the other thing though that didn't work out is my scrap backer board is not big enough to use that as a means of cutting, but that's okay because I do have this cutting board here, which is big enough. So I will then cut on this. You don't have to use a cutting board. It will make your work a lot cleaner and it will make it a lot easier on you because then the knife is able, because this is somewhat cushy to a degree, it can really cut in and give you that clean line. Doing it on a hard surface, it's just going to rub. The metal isn't going to get to dig in. You know, it's going to fight you. So you're always going to have a little ragged edge or that little thread that just won't cut. So if you do have a cutting board, please use it. It really makes it so much easier on you. And I am going to cut this little rectangle out, fit it on here, you know, the right side out. And I'm just going to mentally, before I begin cutting with my X-Acto knife, just figure exactly which parts I'm going to cut, what I'm going to leave, and know that less is more in this instance. You cannot put back what you have cut. You can continue cutting away, but you can't put back what you've already taken out. So be very careful, especially something like this. I need to be careful not to cut in too far because I want to hit it right about there to make sure I give a nice border around this this image for sewing. So I'm going to need a little bit of brainstorming right before I start cutting to make sure I don't cut the wrong parts or cut in too deep. So I wanted to show you, even though I had this whole rectangle to use, you never want to be wasteful. You never know when you're going to need something. And in this case, I may completely mess up or decide that I don't like it and will need the other side of this rectangle to do another one. So it also makes it easier pushing things right to the edge. That's just one less edge that I have to cut around, and it makes for easy access with your scissors. So what I'm doing with the X-Acto knife, if you can see, I'm cutting the paper, but it's actually scoring on the other side. If I can get out of my own light. So you can see the shape starting to take form. Notice that it's a simple shape. I'm not doing all these little leaves and things because in my case I'll be stitching, and the less detail the better for my sewing machine. So it's just going to be a rough design of the tree of life. I may cut out a few of these little openings here in the tree to show that that those are leaves and foliage, but I'm certainly not going to do all this detail. It's just too much. And once I'm done scoring this and getting it to where I like it, then I'll take my scissors, snip a little entryway here in this empty space, and begin to cut around. I could use my X-Acto knife, but it's just so tricky. You can easily slip and cut into the wrong part. So I'm just being very careful, very slow, and I'm lightly scoring what I want to cut later. So here's my tree cut out. I used the large scissors to do the outside circle and the bigger pieces, but once I got into the smaller ones, I found this much tinier, I guess you could call it a cuticle scissor, I'm not sure, but you can usually find one in any nail care kit. So these tiny little snips were great for small areas like that, so I could get into those little parts. And here's what I was working from. So you can see I improvised on some of it. I took out some of these branches that would just be lost anyway in the stitching. It's just too much. So it actually starts looking like almost like a peace symbol in a way, the way that it's oriented. But that's my tree. So it's almost finished. I really don't like, I don't know if you can see them. See those white outlines? It's from this fuzz backing, kind of showing through on the edges. So I am actually going to take one of the cut off pieces. I'm going to test on one of these, but I'm going to see if I can stain them. Maybe do a coffee stain so it blends in with this at least. But I really don't like those white edges. And once I stitch that in, they're not going to go away, and it's just going to be so difficult to try and get rid of them afterwards. So I'm going to see if I can rectify that. So as you can see, the coffee stain actually worked out perfect. This is the back, and you can see it very closely resembles the front. And being that this is a plastic, it won't stain the front. It'll just wipe off. But that cloth backing, it looks like it just soaked it right in. So I just took a tin lid, put a little bit of water, and put in almost equal parts of the instant coffee to make it really thick. And it's perfect. So as you can see, my white edges are gone. So that's what I'm going to do to my little decal here. So I want to show you my progress. As you can see here, this was such a success. This is the back and the front. So you can see the color is so similar, and that's just the coffee stain. And so those white outlines are no longer there. It blends in. It looks like it would be a solid piece of leather. In fact, after it's dry, this felt backing, it actually almost feels like real leather, like the back of it would, because it's skin. So my skin, for example, has these little wrinkles and things in it, and that's what this is meant to mimic. And the underside, when they strip the skin for the leather, it rips and tears and creates these tiny little fuzz-like tissue that gets stuck onto the back that, anyone who sees real leather, you'll notice it has almost like a felt backing, and that's where it was detached from the rest of the body. And this mimics it so much so, I'm so excited that this turned out so well, that I'm actually going to cut long strips of this part, stain the back, and use these as my bookmarks. So I'm so excited because this was not a part of the plan, and my original plan really was very iffy and not going to work. And separating this backing from this plastic, I think they were heat bonded because they're just inseparable, which is a good thing because then at least I know the glue sticking to this will ensure that this will never come off. But at the same time, it's going to make for a really great fake leather look just because of this backing. If I stain it right, it's going to be perfect. So I'm really excited about that and just wanted to show you. And of course, I did this too. This is for the spine to give it that decorative edge. There's no point in staining the center, just a waste of coffee. So I just did the edges so it wouldn't have that white line. And I'm going to proceed to cut my strips and stain them so they can dry, because what I want to do, move this aside here, when I attach this decorative part to the outside, in between, I want to sandwich, I'm thinking, or no, yes, no, how do I want to do this exactly? I'll have to think about it a bit more, but I'm thinking I want to attach my bookmark strips in here so that when it folds, it's seamless. It's like it's coming out from inside. I may have to wait until I fold it over this way and then glue it so it goes up. I'll have to wait. Once I do my strips, I'm going to test it out. This is just what happens when you're sewing and putting things together. Your first idea is probably not what you're going to go with in the end. Things don't always work out as you planned, and there's always that small detail that in theory wasn't there, and in practice it appears. So we'll find out how I'm going to end up making these bookmarks in the end. So as you can see, with my X-Acto knife, I scored the 3 strips that I wanted, but it didn't go all the way through, so it left it intact. So I would stain it as one piece and dried it. You can use a blow dryer or you can just air dry it and wait. So now I'm just taking a pair of scissors and I'm cutting the strips out along the lines that I made when I scored with the X-Acto knife. I could use the knife and cut them all the way, but I'm just afraid that I won't be exactly on the mark and that they would be a double score, and that's just something I don't want to deal with. The scissors make a slightly larger cut, and so it would cover the line a little bit better if I do it manually. and it just makes it easier to leave all three together instead of having to stain all three separate since they're so skinny and small. But you can see, I mean, it's very much resembles real leather. So I'm very happy with it. I'm going to continue cutting these and then figure out how I'm going to fasten them.